Welcome to another episode of Preferred Walk-On, PFF's college football show. I'm your host, Max Chadwick, alongside my co-host, Dalton Wasserman, with basically our Week 5 review. Now, usually what we used to do is go over the biggest games of the weekend. We're just something different, Dalton. We're doing our top 10 teams in college football after this week of college football, which I am very, very excited to get into, man. And yeah, it was a fun Week 5 that we just had, man.
Yeah, it was. We are so close. We were calling out that it was going to be a little bit of madness, and we're so close to having one of those weeks where college football gets turned upside down. You had tight games everywhere: Notre Dame, Georgia, USC. We are so close to all this madness that we love seeing, and we're gonna get there one of these weeks. But this is the time of year when the top 10, especially the top 4, gets debated a lot, and we start seeing everybody's opinions about it before the playoff rankings come out.
You mentioned it right there, man. I mean, I feel like nobody knows who the number 1 team in the country is right now. So I'm interested in seeing how our top 10 shakes out, because there isn't a clear team. Like you mentioned, Georgia, the number 1 team in the country, went down to the wire with an unranked Auburn team this past weekend. And in total, 5 ranked teams lost in Week 5. Now, of course, 4 of them were because of ranked games. And then also Florida goes down to Kentucky, which is a team that we both are pretty high on. And they got Georgia this weekend, so that should be a lot of fun. So before we get into our top 10, though, I wanted to give an opportunity for both of us to shout out a team that's maybe not in the top 10 and maybe one that's not getting as much love as they deserve right now. So, Dawn, what is the team that you want to shout out right now?
For me, it is the Missouri Tigers. And I think we talked about a couple weeks ago, getting a signature win against Kansas State was a big deal for Eli Drinkwitz in that program. I think there's 2 things you need to do when it comes to building yourself into a potentially great team. Win big games and then take care of business, right? They beat Vanderbilt by 17. And you get teams in front of you that aren't as good as you, you need to start blowing them out. And they did that. Brady Cook played the best game of his career. 396 yards, a career high. 4 touchdowns, a career high. 92.2 passing grade, a career high. And he wasn't sacked a single time. The combination, if Cook has turned a corner, the combination of him and Luther Burden, who's currently the highest graded receiver in the country, we've mentioned him in the last few weeks as well, 140 yards, 2 more touchdowns, leading the country in receiving grade, leading the country. He's got a 99.9 grade on screen passes. It is ridiculous what he can do with the ball in his hands. And I believe leading the country with 15 forced missed tackles. He is a nightmare to tackle anywhere he gets the football. And if Cook has turned the corner like he has the last couple of weeks, Missouri's going to be a real problem for some teams in the SEC.
Dude, they absolutely are. Brady Cook, I remember a few weeks ago when we previewed the Kansas State game, we mentioned, yes, Missouri has all this talent, but I think the biggest determining factor is that Brady Cook might not be able to get it done. Dude, he has become a really good quarterback so far this season. I think he's a top 15 grade in the country so far. So not only before, Missouri won games in spite of Brady Cook, now they're winning games because of Brady Cook and because of, like you just mentioned, Luther Burden III, who you can make a strong argument, man, he might be the best receiver in America right now. He is playing lights out football. And again, this kid is a true sophomore. He has to come back to school next season. So if you want a 2025 wide receiver 1, I think it's him, man. And I compared him to Deebo Samuel because, like you mentioned, I mean, that ability after the catch, dude, is stupid. So that's a great shout out. I have Missouri in my, I think, 17th right now. And right now they're number 21 in the AP poll. I think that is far too low for the Missouri Tigers, who are playing lights out right now. Another team who's not even ranked that I have in my top 20, Dalton, is the Maryland Terrapins, who have been unbelievable to start the season. Right now, they're 5-0. That's the first time since 2001 that this team is 5-0. And like I said, they're unranked in the AP poll right now. I have them number 20. They're 19th in EPA per play on offense. Talia Tagovailoa has continued to be one of the most underrated quarterbacks in college football. They got a big test this weekend. They got number 4 Ohio State. That's a big game for them. So, of course, if they lose that game, they definitely won't be ranked, and they probably won't be ranked in my rankings either. But if they beat Ohio State, man, I mean, I just want let you guys know, Preferred Walk-On had it first, man. The Maryland Terrapins are a team that you need to keep an eye on because they are a quality team, and they're blowing out everyone, man. I mean, they beat Towson, which is an FCS school, but whatever. They beat them by 32. They beat Charlotte by 18. Virginia, they beat by 28. They beat Michigan State by 22, and they just beat Indiana by 27. So not only are they 5-0, they are blowing out every single team that they faced so far this season. So I have them in my top 20. They got a huge game at Ohio State this weekend. But yeah, man, I think Maryland should be ranked right now, and I think it's a crime that they aren't. But we're starting off, Dalton, our top 10 teams in the country. Who is your number 10 team right now?
Number 10, I have Notre Dame. They came away with a tight win at Duke after just an awful loss to Ohio State. Heartbreaking. We talked last week about the end of the game, what happened there. But Notre Dame is still a team with top 10 talent, and in the trenches, they're terrific. O-line, D-line, the running game. They run and stop the run. It's classic Notre Dame football. Come away with that win at Duke. Look, it was tight. It was tight. Duke's defense is a real problem. I think they played better than even we thought they would up front. And eventually, Audric Estime was just the difference. He's the second highest overall graded back in the country behind Marshawn Lloyd. He's got 412 yards after contact, which leads the country. Notre Dame has an identity. The one issue I think I'm starting to see with Notre Dame is I don't think Sam Hartman is having the big impact that they thought he would. Over the last 4 weeks, just a 73.4 grade outside the top 50 in the country. He's good. I'm not saying he's not good, but I think they were expecting a different level of quarterback than they're getting. And over the last 2 weeks, especially, I mean, they've scored 17 and 21 points now. Estime got the late touchdown. It's tough. I don't know that Notre Dame can score enough maybe to play. They're playing USC soon. They're going to need a little more out of Hartman if they're really going to run the table and push this thing. But they still have all-around top 10 talent, a big-time defense. Estime is terrific, and they just need to piece it all together in the passing game, I think, to get any higher than that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I don't have them at number 10 because I wanted to put in a team that I've been high on since the preseason at number 10, but Notre Dame I have at number 11, man. Like you said, Audric Estime, he has been fantastic so far this season. I would make the argument he is the best running back in college football right now, at least off of what we've seen this season. And he might be a guy that you could see go in the second, third round of the NFL draft, man. I mean, he is a big, bruising running back. Not going to add much in the receiving game, but he is a tough runner, man. I love watching Audric Estime. Actually, one of my good friends grew up with Audric Estime, so he thinks it's the coolest thing in the world that Audric is like all of a sudden this superstar in college football when he was used to be able to tackle him when Audric was just a little kid, but now he can't obviously anymore. But at number 10, I have Oklahoma, man. I got the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, I know the level of competition hasn't quite been as impressive as a Notre Dame, who barely lost to Ohio State, and then of course, beat a top 20 Duke team. But Oklahoma's 5-0 right now. They're number 12 in the AP poll. I have them at number 10 here. Their defense, man, under Brent Venables, who is one of the top defensive minds in the country, obviously all those years at Clemson. Struggled a little bit last year, but of course, that was a new regime change that he had last year. I want to remind people, yes, Oklahoma went 6-7 last year. Yes, that was their worst record in the 21st century. 5 of those 7 losses were by one possession. They were 0-5 last year in one possession games, and of those 5 games, 4 of them they lost by 3 points. So you're talking about 5 coin flips that they lost every single time. And of course, I'm not gonna say they're the Minnesota Vikings like they were last year, but you change that around, dude. They're an 11-2 football team if they go 5-0 in those one possession games. So I think a lot of people kind of hitting the panic button on Oklahoma is far too soon, and they're proving why right now, man. 5-0, like I said, they got Texas this week. That defense right now, second best defensive grade in the country. They're 10th in EPA per play. It's going to be tested this week against Texas in that Red River rivalry because, Quinn Ewers and that passing attack, Ewers has been up and down, man, but Jonathan Brooks in the run game has been great. The O-line's been holding up pretty well, and that receiving core is still one of the best in the country, man. So I got Oklahoma at number 10 right now, only because I kind of want to be first on them because I do think there's a good chance Oklahoma could be taking down Texas this weekend and rocket launch into maybe the 7 or 6 or something like that, man. Because I think this is a really, really quality team that Oklahoma has right now.
I agree. I mean, you talk about you mentioned launching yourself way higher than that. Look, if they beat Texas, they have no reason in front of them they couldn't run the table.
Yeah.
Obviously, Bedlam at the end of the year is always something, but I think both of these teams, this is the Red River rivalry is always the game of the year, but it might be more so this year. This is the game that puts you on a path to a national title. Although they very well could see each other again in the Big 12 title game, but
Yeah, they
this is the game. This is the game, the signature win for each team, as it usually is. But there hasn't been a Texas-Oklahoma game with this high stakes in a long, long time. If Oklahoma wins and if Texas wins, I mean, you have every reason to believe they could run the table because the Big 12 doesn't have a ton of depth.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So yeah, Oklahoma. It's ironic that Oklahoma and Texas could be meeting that Big 12 title game in their final year in the Big 12 as well. So kind of a sweep of sour at the same time for those two teams. But Dalton, who's your number 9 team that you want to talk about right now?
Number 9, and I don't know if you're going to love it, is your Penn State Nittany Lions.
Wow. Okay.
It's fantastic. They're playing fantastic defense. 4th in the country in overall defensive grade, 1st in the country in pass rush grade. Chop Robinson's going to find himself in the top 10 of the draft if he keeps playing like this.
Yeah.
But offensively, and I know they put up 41 on Northwestern, but Northwestern is Northwestern. It's just not all clicking. It's still, they had a great pass protection game finally against Northwestern, but they're still outside the top 50, and they were hovering around 90th, I believe we had before that game. They need a real test. They're at the point where they need a real test. They were better than West Virginia in week 1, and now West Va's won 4 games in a row. But you keep playing these Big Ten West teams, Iowa, Illinois, Northwestern. These teams can't score. So Penn State's defense is good. Robinson, Kalen King, all that stuff. It is very good. I don't know that it's elite. We will find that out soon. And offensively, it's still just not all clicking. When you have, they're tied for 3rd in the Power 5 in drops. The run block grade is still outside the top 80. It's really Drew Aller. He doesn't put the ball in danger. I like Drew Aller a lot, but I have a feeling with this supporting cast that he's going to have to turn into something great. I like him a lot. I want to love him. I really do, but I need to see it, right? And look, I'm glad he plays really good functional football against these teams that clearly Penn State is better than and just can't score. Iowa, you shut out Iowa. There's only so much I can be impressed by that. Northwestern, and even the Northwestern game, honestly, late in the second quarter, that game was, I believe, 10-10.
Yeah.
It was a struggle, really, for the first half, and then they took it over. So it's time for me to see Penn State either play better offensively than they've been playing, despite the point totals they're putting up. Eventually, that's just a matter of the other team's defense running out of gas, forcing so many 3-and-outs, that sort of thing. They need to play better offensively, and I need to see them play Ohio State. That's in 2-3 weeks. Is it on the 14th? I forget which week it is.
It's in 3 weeks because they have a bye week, then they got UMass, and then they got Ohio State. So
okay, so you've got 2 weeks of practice, 3 weeks of practice before Ohio State. Yeah. UMass is UMass.
Yeah,
we're just going to find out everything we need to know about Penn State. Look, if Penn State beats Ohio State, I think you very well could probably, depending especially on how Aller looks, you could probably put him like number 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Right? I need to see it. I mean, every year this is the thing. Their season is going to get defined by how they play Ohio State and Michigan. And to me, we're just waiting on that, and they haven't impressed me enough all around offensively. It just hasn't looked clean, And I know Illinois and Iowa are 2 pretty good defensive teams, but it's inconsistent on offense, and I think the AP has them 6 right now. I would drop them a little bit below a couple of these teams that we're about to talk about in a minute.
Yeah, I agree. I think 6 is a little high. I'm going to hold off my Penn State thoughts because I do have them a little bit higher than you. But the team I'm bringing up next, Dawn, which I think actually works out because I think you have them next as well after this, is USC. USC currently 5-0, number 9 in the AP poll. So I have them exactly where the AP poll has them right now. Man, they got a high-powered offense. Like Caleb Williams, 6 touchdown passes against Colorado, tied a career high for him, over 400 yards as well. Marshawn Lloyd scored a touchdown. They scored 48 points in this game. They beat Colorado by 7 points, by only 7 points. Now, Shedeur Sanders is a fantastic quarterback. We've talked at length about him in previous episodes already about how great he's been, and I think he still is a great quarterback. But You beat Colorado by 7, man. That defense fell apart in the second half. And I wanted to throw out a stat that I looked up before the show. It's just in terms of the Lincoln Riley offenses and the Lincoln Riley defenses that he's had in his tenure as a head coach. So I think the best stat to really look at how well an offensive defense is playing is EPA per play, expected points added or allowed per play. It basically just measures how efficient you are. USC in 2023 right now, second in the country in offensive. Defensive, 61st. Year before, first in the country in offense, 123rd in defense. The year before that at Oklahoma, 5th in the country in offense, 84th in defense. In 2020, keep in mind, 2020 COVID year, 15th in offense, 31st in defense. You kind of just throw that year out because, how few games that everyone played. 2019, though, 4th in offense, 78th in defense. 2018, 1st in offense, 120th in defense. And in 2017, 1st in offense, 71st in defense. Outside of that COVID year, Oklahoma, USC, whatever, have basically been outside the top 70 in defensive EPA per play, and they've been in the top 5 every single year. This is a top 5 offense consistently, and it's consistently a below average to atrocious defense every single year. Alex Grinch is the current defensive coordinator for USC, right now. And man, there's got to be some hard conversations coming up soon, man, because he has been there for a while now. And yes, they're 61st this year, but this is the first real offense that they've played this year. They haven't really played a tough schedule before Colorado in terms of offensive ability. That 61st number is probably going to drop a little bit once they start going up against some really, really good offenses the Pac-12 has. So Alex Grinch, man, yes, he had that one COVID year where his defense was actually pretty good. But other than that, man, it has been well below average. So listen, they forced turnovers, but they also let up a lot of big plays, man. So I don't know, man. I don't think USC, I have them as a playoff team right now. They can consistently compete for a playoff team, but until that defense improves, they will never be a national championship contender because that defense, you can't have a below average not even below average. You can't have one of the worst defenses in the country and expect to really compete with some of the top teams in the country, no matter how good your offense is, Dalton.
No, I totally agree. I have them 8, you have them 9, and which means we both have them 3rd in the pack among the Pac-12 teams. Their defense is a problem. It's actually the last 2 weeks. They gave up 28 points and got run all over against Arizona State. They've given up 69 points the last 2 weeks. And Shedeur is great. And, I don't know where Marion Miller was the first few games for Colorado, but get him on the field, please. How many weapons does Colorado have? But no, USC, this is the problem. It's their identity now. We're this far into a season, and really, you just mentioned it. It's Lincoln Riley's identity is we'll have the best offense in the country, and we'll try to win games 50-35. They have the best quarterback in the country.
Yep.
They currently have the best running back in the country, in Lloyd.
Yep.
They just it makes you wonder when they play Washington and Oregon and teams that can keep up with them. If it can hold up. Or honestly, Caleb Williams, look, he's got 21 touchdowns and 1 interception. It makes you wonder, Max, if there's a day where Caleb Williams doesn't go like crazy. Let's say he has a normal day, 280 and 3 touchdowns, right? Are they winning that game?
No,
because
I don't.
I don't see, he's got to throw 6 against Colorado. It feels like he throws 5 touchdowns every week. I'm pretty sure he does. I mean, it's nuts. The only interesting thing with him, I find, and I wrote about this previewing the Colorado game, last year Caleb Williams was number 1 in the country in grade when pressured.
Yeah,
somewhere around an 85. The best pressured quarterback, doing them home stuff, all that stuff. This year he's 120th, and he's starting late in the play to sling the ball into bad spots or hold it too long and fumble. I believe he's got 7 turnover-worthy plays under pressure. He's in the bottom 20, I believe it is, in the country in pressured grade, and now number 1 in clean pocket grade at a 95. So it's starting to – you start to wonder if Caleb's feeling the pressure to carry this thing late in the play because he knows – if I don't put up 45 points, we very well could lose this game. Now, he's the best weapon in the country. He's the best player, quarterback, everything in the country. He's going, he's probably might go to Chicago pretty soon here. But it's just starting to feel like if Caleb Williams either doesn't throw for 5 touchdowns or he turns, God forbid, he turns an ankle, what are they going to do otherwise? Because they really, it just feels like over and over they have one way, and it's a surefire way to win ball games as there is in the country. But it seems like the only way they can win ball games.
It absolutely is, man, because it really is. If you don't have a perfect day on offense, you could lose. And that's not a way you could play football, man. If you need perfection from one side of the ball in every single week, that is not a winning strategy, man. Now, of course, Caleb Williams, if anyone could have a perfection every single week, it is Caleb Williams. Now, they're lucky in the quarterback that they have. But yeah, man, I mean, listen, if Washington and Oregon, who have pretty good defense, especially Oregon, if they stop Caleb a couple times, that could be lights out, man. That could be lights out. So Caleb, there's a lot of pressure on him, and I agree with you. That pressure grade, it might not just be him, playing worse. It might just be him feeling more pressure on himself to say, hey, like you said, I got to score a touchdown on this drive, man. If I don't score, he put up 6 touchdown passes against Colorado, and they won by 7 points. That should tell you a lot about where this team is right now. And like I said, Alex Grinch, the problem I keep going back to, Dalton, this defense has NFL talent too. This isn't a talent issue. It's not like Lincoln's just recruiting 5 stars on offense and not getting them on defense. He has some really good defensive players. Bear Alexander, great defensive tackle. Damani Jackson will probably be one of the top corners in next year's draft. Kalen Bullock, one of the top safeties in this year's draft. They got some really good defensive players. They're not playing well together right now. They have the number 1 recruit in the country in Corey Foreman a couple years ago in the 2020 class, actually above Caleb Williams in that class. He has barely played in 3 years now, and he was the number 1 overall recruit in the country coming out of high school at edge defender. So he's barely played in 3 years, man. So it's not a talent issue. I think there's more of a conversation to be had around Alex Grinch, but Lincoln Riley has proven to be loyal to Alex Grinch, man, and that could ultimately be his undoing, honestly, is how loyal he is to Alex Grinch, because it's not getting done right now. What they're doing on defense is not getting done. But so you have them at number 8, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll go over to my number 8 team, which is the Oregon Ducks, who I have at number 8 right now, 8th also in the AP poll. Right now, USC, who has the second best offense in the country in terms of EPA per play, like I said, Oregon currently is number 1 in the country in terms of EPA per play. They had a great showing against Stanford, 42-6 victory over the Cardinal. And now Oregon, like I said, number 1 in the country, also 15th in the country in defensive EPA per play. This is a well-coached team, man. I have loved what I've seen from Coach Alex Stein on the offensive side of the ball, the new offensive coordinator. I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit worried after they lost Kenny Dillingham to Arizona State, who's now the Arizona State head coach. I thought he was one of the best OCs in the country. He obviously helped Bo Nix become the player he is now. And I thought, oh man, are we going to see Bo revert to his old self without Dillingham? Bo's looked phenomenal. That receiving core, Troy Franklin, looks fantastic right now, man. He could be pushing for a first-round slot at the end. That offensive line might be the best in the country right now. Bucky Irving has been fantastic as well. That, like I said, the defense with the way they're coached right now, with Dan Lanning there, I mean, he's a terrific defensive coach. They're playing really good football right now. It's going to be tested in 2 weeks. They got a bye week this week. Then they got Washington coming up after that, which is going to be one of the biggest games of the year. I cannot wait for that. But that's going to be tested, man, against Michael Penix Jr. and that high-powered offense. But I liked a lot what I've seen from Oregon so far this season. But I'm not going to put them in the top half just yet, because I just want to see a little bit more. Show me what you got against Washington, and then we can start talking about them as a legit playoff team for me.
Yeah, no, I get it. And you mentioned Washington too, and we'll segue right into my number 7 being the Washington Huskies. Look, these two teams, this was the hardest debate for me. Who's better between these two teams? And right now we don't know, because they're both so good and they're going to play each other in 12 days. And it might be the game of the year. Honestly, You got two teams that are so stacked. I'll dig in on Washington real quick and circle back to the Ducks next. You got Michael Penix Jr., who's the highest graded quarterback in the country. They are second in pass protection behind Oregon, who is by far number 1. And Oregon's only given up 8 pressures all year, which is crazy. But Washington right behind them at a 90. The number 1 receiving grade as a team. Look, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, Rome Odunze. I don't think there is a better combination of 3 receivers on one team in the country. They have everything. They have everything. They have a top 25 defense in the grading. It's solid. It's kind of what you're asking for from USC is, can you just be above average? Can you help us out sometimes? Washington has that. Washington, they haven't played anybody great, but again, I talked about it before with Missouri. If you're going to be great, you also have to blow out teams. Take care of business, right? Cal blew them out. Michigan State blew them out. This past week against Arizona, Penix didn't throw a touchdown. They only won 31-24. There's two ways about that. You could say, well, why are you playing so tight with Arizona? And then you can also say, well, Washington, okay, they can win a game like that. They can win 31-24, and they can rely a little bit on the run game and the defense. And Penix didn't throw a touchdown. It wasn't the prettiest day. They didn't get all the deep shots. I think only one big-time throw on the day. It's kind of a question we just asked. So, could you see USC winning a game 31-24? I don't know about that. But at least I've seen Washington do it, not play their best and win a ball game. I think that's big. I think it's a sign. That is a sign of some great teams, and I think it's a theme for a lot of these teams in this top 10. So I'm not going to take anything away from Washington. I think you get out of this Arizona game with a win, and you get out healthy, and the big ones are coming. Yeah. Right? I believe they have a bye week also going into the Oregon game. You're going to get two fresh teams, two of the best offenses in the country. I'm going Washington at 7, and I'll get into the reasoning for 6 in a moment. But they're just rock solid, man. I mean, they have everything. They have everything. They have currently, between Penix and Williams, to me, are probably the top 2 in some order for the Heisman right now.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I can't say enough for how good he's been and how their entire offense. I don't know. I got to be honest with you. I don't really know the answer to defending everything they have.
Dude, the thing about Penix, just to kind of show how insane he has been the last 2 seasons, he is currently, you can check out Trevor Sikkema's mock draft right now over at pff.com. Does great stuff for us, obviously. He has him right now in the top 20 of that mock draft. I want to remind people, this is a 6th-year quarterback who has 2 torn ACLs in his past, a shoulder injury in the past as well. Normally, you see 2 torn ACLs, a shoulder injury, 6th-year quarterback. Most NFL teams will say, yeah, I don't want that guy. Yeah, keep that guy away from me. That is a lot of baggage that we're bringing on. He has played so freaking well over these last 2 seasons that NFL teams are like, you got to take him. I mean, he's looked phenomenal. He looks like an NFL player.
I'm gonna vouch for this real quick. He's always had that level of talent. I'm not sure Indiana was the right place for him to be. So he's from, check this out. I got a story. This is story time. He's from Tampa. He went to Tampa Bay Tech in Tampa, and I used to coach at St. Pete High.
Okay.
The year before I got there, St. Pete played. I've seen the tape on this. St. Pete played Tampa Bay Tech, and it was a playoff game. Went to double overtime. I believe he threw 6 touchdowns. And St. Pete, they had several college players on that team. Matt Landers, who was a receiver at Arkansas, among other places. Anthony Johnson, who's now with the Green Bay Packers. Some Jalen Williams, who used to be at Toledo. They had several college-level players, and a terrific, shout out to Sean Davis, terrific defensive coordinator. And he put up, I believe it was 48-46. The game ended in 6 touchdowns. He's been this talented, man, forever, since high school, since he was in Tampa. He flashed it at Indiana. Outside of the injury, there's really nothing wrong with Penix at all other than the injuries. If you want a guy with just insane levels of talent and can do it all, Penix is it, and he's been like that forever. I don't know. I don't think he went to the right situation at Indiana. They're just not. I think there was one year where they had some weapons, but other than that, it's really just unfortunate how it's gone, because he could have been this prior to this. It shouldn't have taken to the 5th and 6th year. He could have easily stepped in as a freshman, sophomore, and just put up these types of numbers at the right school if he was healthy. But I can tell you, I've seen it since he was in high school, since he was 16, 17. This guy's got everything. It's crazy. And he can even make some throws off platform, off his back foot. He just needed to be in the right situation, and he certainly is. And look, Washington, win a couple big games here. If you're that good, you could see them in the playoff. They have all the potential in the world.
Definitely. Dude, definitely. And yeah, that's a great point you make, because I actually did some NFL draft coverage a few years ago, And I loved him at Indiana, man. I loved him at Indiana. And so I agree with you. Like, yeah, you've seen this before. This isn't just like some brand new quarterback who wasn't good at Indiana and all of a sudden has turned into a superstar. Yes, the offense at Washington has really helped him. Ryan Grubb, the OC, there's phenomenal. And Kalen DeBoer, obviously, is a great offensive-minded head coach. And you got all the receivers there, the offensive line, like you mentioned. So, yes, it is a very advantageous offense for a quarterback to be in. But at the same time, that offense, like you said, is humming right now because of number 9, because of Michael Penix Jr. So I completely agree with you. He has been fantastic. I might even argue he deserves a Heisman Trophy right now, but I think Caleb, I agree with you. He and Caleb are the clear 2 front runners for the Heisman Trophy, which we will talk about in a couple of weeks, by the way, our weekly top 5 Heisman candidates. So I'm excited about. But I'll get into my number 17 quickly. You did a great job covering them. It is my my Penn State Nittany Lions. I dropped them from number 6 last week to number 7 this week. And yes, they beat Northwestern 41-13. Backdoor covered that 27-point spread, by the way, which is the second time James Franklin has backdoor covered a spread. Did it against West Virginia, scoring like the last play of the game to cover the spread. Basically did the same thing this week against Northwestern, covering the spread as well, which I don't blame him for, honestly, because you look, if voters aren't watching Penn State games, they look at it and say, oh, they beat them by 28. Oh, they covered the spread. They're getting the job done. We who watch the games a lot are telling you there's some issues with this Penn State team, specifically on offense. Man, this is a rough offensive team around Drew Aller right now, because Drew Aller has been fantastic. I think you can make a strong argument he's at least the second or third best quarterback in the Big Ten, maybe even the best compared to what all the players around him right now. But right now, Penn State's offense in terms of grading is 19th in the country in passing grade, which is Drew Aller, 51st in rushing grade, 60th in receiving grade, 53rd in pass blocking grade, and 85th in run blocking grade. This offense is solely right now relying on Drew Aller. It reminds me a lot, honestly, of that UNC offense with Drake May, where it's just like, hey, Drake, if you're not on, man, we're not scoring. That's what it feels like a little bit with Drew Aller, because that offensive line is really struggling, even with Olu Fashanu playing lights out as a pass protector. That offensive line, the run game, is really struggling to get pushed. Then the running backs can't really do much when they're getting tackled immediately when they get the handoff, and Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton, who are both stud running backs. I'm worried, man. And yes, the defense is, currently first in the country in EPA per play. But like you mentioned, they played Iowa, they played Illinois, they played Northwestern, they played West Virginia. This has been a pretty easy, and played Delaware as well. Pretty easy schedule in terms of the offenses that you're facing. We'll see in a couple weeks when they got Ohio State, because that should be a big test. But yeah, Penn State number 7. I'm not all the way out on this team yet, because I do think Drew Aller is really good, and I think that defense, even though they played a weak slate so far, is still a really good defense. But the rest of that offense scares me a little bit right now. So I do have them at number 7. I do want to caution people from being too high on this Nittany Lion team right now.
Yeah, I'm with you totally. I think it's prove it time.
Yeah.
You get a bye week of practice. You got UMass, a week of practice, and a Saturday of practice. And it's just prove it time. This is the time for Penn State. If they're going to do it, if Aller's going to be special, if the rest of them are going to step up, doing it against Ohio State, it's got to be the time. Now, they don't have to score a bunch of points. I think it's going to be, you're going to see much like the Ohio State Notre Dame game, very defensive game. McCord's not going to tear them up. Yep. He's going to try to play clean and win the same way they did against Notre Dame, which is cool. That's the type of team Ohio State is. You're going to see them playing games like that all season. Even this week, they're going to try to slow this game down, front 7, run the ball, all that stuff against Maryland too. Penn State, if Aller can't at least elevate the offense above what McCord does for Ohio State, then they won't win. They need to be. It sounds funny for a team that just won by 28 and 38-0 over Iowa. They need to be better, and I think there's another team we're going to talk about. Probably 2 more teams we're going to talk about soon here that I believe the same thing. I think Penn State is a team at 5-0. I think you put it best. They did what they needed to. They took care of business, and they at some point, taking care of business, gets you in the top 12 to 14, sure. Getting into the top 6, top 4 isn't about just taking care of business. Mm-hmm. It's about the big moments, right? And there's every year in the Big Ten East, there's 2 big moments for all those teams: Ohio State game, Michigan game, and for the other 2, the Penn State game. Yeah, and Penn State, unfortunately usually ends up on, as the third wheel in that. They're the ones who just don't prove it often enough, or against both. So it's prove it time.
Yeah.
It is. It's coming, and we're just going to find out what they're made of against the Buckeyes. I don't need to see any more of Penn State against Illinois and against Northwestern. I don't need to see it. I know they're that good. I know they're one of the 15 best teams in the country. That's not a question. There is no question Penn State will end up in the top 15, potential New Year's 6, all that stuff. Can this offense elevate itself? If you tell me you've got the best left tackle in the country, and you think you've got the most talented QB in Penn State history, and you've got Allen and Singleton, and you've got all this stuff, they have to prove it in big moments, because right now it still looks like they're just not clicking on all cylinders, and they are there because of their talent.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And the other thing I want to bring out quickly about Penn State, and why I think I'm not all the way out on them yet, Drew Aller has played really well under pressure so far this season. Right now, I think he's around top 15 quarterbacks in terms of under pressure grade. So even if the offensive line's not holding up, he's still performing. So if he was, like we mentioned, Caleb Williams struggling under pressure, if he was one of those quarterbacks that did struggle under pressure, this would be a much bigger issue, man, for Drew Aller. But he is elevating this offense right now, so I want to give him credit, but it's going to be a different animal, man, when you got Ohio State and Michigan. So, yeah, we're all both a little bit lower on the Nittany Lions, who currently are still number 6 in the AP poll. But, Dalton, ultimately, who is your number 6 team right now that you have?
This was the hardest debate for me, so I just had Washington at 7. I got the Oregon Ducks 6. This was probably the hardest part. I knew I wanted USC behind them both, but at 6 and 7, it was a long thought process of Oregon and Washington, what order they would be in. I love them both. The difference to me, I'm going to kind of take the resume route, is what Oregon did to Colorado. Washington hasn't done that to a team of that caliber yet. I think Colorado is they're still going to win 8, maybe even 9 games. And you've got Shoutout. We mentioned the top 2. We're going to piece this list together officially in a couple of weeks, but I was kind of going through it in my head. I was like, man, I'd probably have Shoutout third in the Heisman right now still. Just the difference, what Oregon did to them, looking so much better on both sides of the ball in the trenches. You also have the team with the best pass protection by far in the country. A 94.9 pass pro grade is nuts. Yeah. I can't. The best teams usually hover where Washington's at about a 90, which is incredible. And they're at almost a 95. They've given up 8 pressures. One of them, I think, was on a running back. 7 pressures all year in 5 games from their offensive line. I can't even. Bo Nix could stand back there and eat dinner. I mean, it's nuts. He's been his usual really solid self. Jordan James he's got the second best rushing grade in the country. Bucky Irving is in the top 20. What is he? 22nd in rushing. They've just got it's so efficient right now offensively with their O-line, their running game, the action off it, and everything Nix can do when he's clean in the pocket. And their defense, you mentioned it before. Look, they're 6th in the country in coverage grade, and they're only giving up 4.8 yards per attempt, which is 4th best in the country. So they're keeping, and there's not like one standout guy who's like, oh, this corner is grading a 92, and the rest of them are keeping up. Like, this isn't a Darrelle Revis type of thing or something like that. Their entire group just plays so well together. They're so balanced on defense. It's not the best defense in the country, but they're so solid across the board that they're hard to deal with. Just everything. I'm not sure there's probably not a single first round pick on their defense.
No.
But they're so good and they play so well together that it just sometimes those are the teams that are harder to beat, honestly. Yeah. There's just no holes. It's kind of what sometimes one of the PFF theories in the secondary is you're as strong as your weakest link. Well, they don't really have one. Every guy is just solid. They do their job. It was a struggle a little bit against Texas Tech, but that's because, Shuck ran the ball a lot. It wasn't really because he was slinging it all over them. They're going to be fun to watch this secondary against Penix and against Williams. And you saw what they did to Sanders, which looking back at what now Sanders did to USC is even more impressive to me for Oregon. So the combination of their secondary and their trench play, even though I'd put Nix between the 3 teams pretty clearly as the 3rd best quarterback, but still really good. Oregon's so well-rounded, and it's hard. it's hard to drop a team down like that too low. So number 6, the more I thought about it, the more I thought about what they did to Colorado. 6, just ahead of Washington. And honestly, if I could just call them tied for 6, I really would. I think this Oregon-Washington game again, it might be the best game we watch all year. They both have everything you could ask for in a football team. It's nuts how balanced they are.
Dude, and last year is one of the best games of the year as well when Penix and Nix went up against each other. So, if last year was any indication, we're in for another classic this year, man, which I cannot wait for. So that leads it perfectly. I have Washington here at 6th. Yes, they struggled a little bit with Arizona, who really isn't that great of a team. But other 4 games are winning by an average of 33 points. I mean, Washington, you can make the argument, no team probably has looked as dominant as Washington, or few have really, through the first, 5 games of the season. So I have Washington here at number 6. That offense is fantastic. The defense, like you said, is good enough, which is what USC needs right now. They got some good players on that side of the ball. Braylon Trice is kind of falling off a little bit, but he still could be a day 1 or day 2 pick in the NFL draft at edge defender. And like you mentioned, that offense, man, what the coaches that they have on offense and the players that they have on offense, there might not be a better combination of coaches and players and personnel on offense in the country. I mean, you can make a strong... I'll go back on that. USC is probably that because Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams, but Washington is a close second, man, because of what they have in DeBoer and Ryan Grubb at OC, who Alabama tried to poach as their OC, and he stayed at Washington. And you got all those receivers, and you got obviously Michael Penix Jr., offensive line's playing really well. Second behind USC, I would say, in terms of the personnel they got, both in coaching staff and in terms of the players they have on offense. So, yeah, man, Washington is really good. But Dalton, top 5 time now. Who is your number 5 team in college football?
Top 5. All right, number 5, and I admittedly have some friends from Florida who are going to be mad about this, but I'm going with the Florida State Seminoles. Yeah. Look, I think this is another team very much like Penn State and a little bit like USC. They've earned it. Look, looking at Florida State's schedule, when you see in the first 4 weeks they have LSU and they have at Clemson, boy, that's earning it early. Yeah. It is. And I think the bye week couldn't come at a better time for them. But they do need to be better. Their front 7 has to be better. They were better in this last Clemson game, an 83.9 run defense grade, by far their best of the season, because we were up against Boston College against the run. They look awful. I mean, the run and the boot game was killing them. But look, Jordan Travis, when you have Travis and you have Coleman, you have Johnny Wilson, you can will your teams to win. And they did. They willed themselves to a win with their best players against Clemson. And honestly, I don't take the total result like at Clemson and you could watch the tape and break it all down. Look, facts are facts. Anytime, I don't care who you are, anytime you come out of Clemson with a win, that's a good day. So I think the bye week's at a perfect time. I do think they need to get better. If they are the same team that they've been the last 2 weeks, look, they're playing Duke. Duke is a problem on defense. They're playing Miami. Miami's offense is rolling. They are absolutely – Tyler Van Dyke is slinging the ball all over the place. They are rolling. They play Florida, who – Florida State is better than Florida. But it's very similar to what we talked about with Clemson against Florida State and with Florida against Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Florida stylistically could cause them problems later in the year, and they're going to be jacked up. If Florida State's 11-0, you can bet the Gators are going to be jacked up to play that game. So it's – Florida State has a lot in front of them, and probably – one of those teams or even North Carolina in the ACC title game. There's a long way to go, but Florida State, even though I wouldn't say across the board they've played better than Oregon, Washington, say it like that, but wins against LSU and at Clemson speak, okay? And when you have Jordan Travis, you have a chance. They need to get better, but they've earned their way, I think, to this spot. I think they've also earned their way the last 2 weeks, especially against BC, out of the top 4. So number 5, again, there's going to be people mad at me for this, but number 5 felt right to me. I don't think they are playing at a playoff super elite level. I think Travis is. Jordan Travis is. Keon Coleman's a monster. I'll tell you what. He was something to watch coming from Michigan State. You could see him deep ball, contested catches. I think he was second in deep grade last year behind Marvin Harrison in the Big Ten. I didn't think he'd be this good.
Yeah.
What Keon Coleman's doing. I mean, he's got. I think Trevor has him in the first round somewhere of the mock draft now. All of a sudden,
top 10 in the mock draft.
Top 10. I mean, what Keon Coleman's doing and Johnny Wilson. He's 6'7". I mean, it's just you just win.
Yeah.
I think they did it right in that Clemson game. Win with your best players. Florida State's best players can play with anybody. Anybody.
Yeah.
They just need to keep working on the rest of it, especially in the trenches. They need a more consistent running game with Benson and Toffoli and whoever else. And the front seven has to be better because they're playing Van Dyke. We'll see if they're playing Riley Leonard. I haven't heard anything about that injury. They're playing Drake. They might play Drake May in the ACC title game. You got to be good in the front seven to beat some of these quarterbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, Riley Leonard does not have a season-ending injury, but Pete Thamel, I believe, is the one who reported that it is going to be a multiple-week injury. So, I don't know exactly when I'm looking right now. They play Duke October 21st. So, that's – I don't know. I have no idea what the timetable is, but that's, 19 days away. I don't know.
It felt so bad for him too. They just gutted it out, man. That was like the worst way that game could have ended too. Because Duke played. I mean, I got nothing against Duke. I'm not even sure. I think they dropped 5 spots in the rankings, and I'm not even really sure they should have. Their defense is a real problem. They played a gutsy game. It sucked for it to end that way, man.
Oh no, and they lost on Sam Hartman making a miracle 4th and I think 16 run, and then it was tough, man. It was a tough loss for Duke, and Riley Leonard's a terrific kid, man. Too. We have an interview with him as well. He's as good as he is as a quarterback, man. He's even better as a person, man. He's fantastic. But I got Florida State number 5 as well. It might seem a little bit weird for people who have kept up to date with my rankings. I had Florida State 3rd last week. Now they're number 5 after a bye week, and people are like, how on earth are you dropping a team 2 spots after a bye week? But it's a few things. So one, LSU just lost its 2nd game of the season. So that LSU win, while it is impressive, and while LSU still probably is a top 25-ish team in the country, that loses some luster as well. Duke lost as well, and I know Florida State hasn't played Duke yet, but Clemson lost to Duke. So it's kind of like you go through all these things right now, and Ohio State, we'll get into in a little bit, beat Notre Dame, the team that beat Duke. So all of a sudden, Ohio State's resume, I think, looks a little bit better than Florida State. So there's a lot of, mental gymnastics I'm going through in these rankings, but that's why I dropped them 2 spots after not playing a game. But yeah, you mentioned it, man. I mean, LSU and Clemson, those are 2 tough games. Even though both teams have 2 losses already this season, those are still 2 at least top 25 teams in the country, in my opinion, in terms of how good they are. Not in terms of where they should be ranked, but in terms of how good they are, I'd argue both are still top 25 teams in the country. Now they got kind of a week. They had a bye week. Now they have Virginia Tech. And it's interesting, Dalton, because they're favored by 25.5 points over a struggling Hokie team. They were also favored by 25.5 points over Boston College, and they squeaked by with a 2-point victory. So I'm interested in seeing how they do now after playing 2 really tough games in Boston and 2 really close games, in Boston College and Clemson. Now you got another easier opponent in Virginia Tech. Can you handle business? Now I do think the one thing I'll say before we move on, I think Florida State's issues are somewhat fixable. They have talent in that front 7. This isn't like a USC or Penn State where I'm like, man, that offense, I don't know if they can fix it. Like, I don't know if the O-line can be fixed. I don't know if the receiving core can be fixed at Penn State. USC has not proved, Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch have not proven to have a capable defense in 7 years. Like, I don't know if they could fix that either. Florida State, they have Jared Verse, they got Braden Fisk on that defensive line. The linebackers are an issue, yes, but that defensive line should, be a lot better than what it is right now. Hopefully after this bye week, they come back and they're a lot better. And they showed that they were a lot better against Clemson too. So I'm holding out hope on that defensive line, but it is an issue now for sure. But now I guess we're getting into what would be our college football playoff right now, Dalton. Who's your number 4 team in the country?
Oh, it's time to ruffle some feathers. This is gonna be a fun one. We've already annoyed the state of Utah, and now I'm going a completely different direction. We're gonna hear about it. Number 4, I have your 2-time defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs.
Wow.
This is an eye test one for me, and not even the eye test necessarily. Look, they are outside the top 12 in both offense and defense grading. Okay. They, other than Brock Bowers, who is the best tight end in the country, and you're going to get some numbers in on that in a minute.
Yeah.
And Malachi Starks, who's the highest graded safety in the country, hasn't missed a tackle, 2 picks, 4 pass breakups, holding up the back end really well. Georgia can really cover. But Georgia, they haven't played a particularly tough schedule, right? South Carolina, Auburn, UAB. They haven't played a tough schedule. And they don't look They don't look like the best team in the country. They are number one in the country in the AP in every poll because they haven't lost a game in forever. They've won 2 straight titles. It's kind of the reputation, prestige. I'm going to be honest with you. They don't look like the best team in the country. They struggled for a half with UAB. They struggled for more than a half against South Carolina, and they didn't take the lead against Auburn until there was under 3 minutes left, 2.5 minutes left, and Brock Bowers just took the game over. I don't know that Georgia has a ton of answers offensively first. Look, Carson Beck, their pass protection is really good, but it's kind of uplifted by Carson Beck getting rid of the ball. 2.35 seconds he's getting rid of the ball right now. It's 6th fastest in the country. Okay, he gets rid of the ball. He gets it out quick. He generally makes good enough decisions right at the sticks. I saw a lot of first downs to McConkey. They're kind of like figuring out how to get first downs for now and then waiting for Brock Bowers to pop off, right? The run game is not as elite as we've seen in past years. It doesn't look like Edwards is like Todd Gurley or DeAndre Swift or one of those guys they've had. It's just he's solid, really, really solid. But I'm not seeing a ton of, other than Bowers, I don't see a ton of dynamic on Georgia's offense, okay? And their defense looks a little more, almost Starks is the standout, but, I kind of described Oregon where they're more solid across the board than anything great, like having a Jalen Carter or these, Nakobe Dean or these crazy level of talent they've had. I know there's guys who are going to be first-round picks down the line, right? But their defense looks more across the board solid, really solid, fundamentally sound. It's Kirby Smart still, right? He's still going to run a top 10 to 15 defense out there. He could run a bunch of lesser guys out there. He could go to a Conference USA team and run a top 10 defense. But they're also, the one big thing is a pass rush. We've mentioned this. I think we mentioned this last week or the week before. They right now only have 8 sacks on the season in 5 games. They are just not winning up front. The pass rush grade is 90th. Their pressure rate is 95th, and they only have 8 sacks. Eventually, now the SEC East is not loaded with quarterbacks by any means. And we just, honestly, you could argue right now that Brady Cook is the best quarterback in the SEC East, which kind of tells you all you need to know. Tennessee's up and down. It's not Graham Mertz. You could make that argument. Kentucky just won a game, throwing the ball for like 80 yards or something. They just ran Ray Davis all day on Florida. I'm curious. I'm a little worried about Georgia's pass rush. And offensively, there's still just there's prolonged stretches in games where they're just not consistently moving the football. And honestly, if Auburn had any passing game at all, they would have won. I know it's going to be a thing, and the Dogs are supposed to be number one because they're the 2-time defending champs and all that stuff, but just they don't look like the best team in the country. I'm going to still throw them at 4. I debated putting Florida State at 4. I thought about it and dropping Georgia out. I don't think Georgia should deserve to be dropped out until we see them lose, or if it starts really a continued struggle. But it does not look – this doesn't look like the last 2 Georgia teams, other than Bowers. Look, if Brock Bowers goes and wins a national title as the one huge weapon on their team, how do you not take him? He might be the highest drafted tight end ever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just – I don't know this time. Call me a doubter, throw me in the boat, whatever. They don't look like the best team. And I think, honestly, they're going to have a reasonably easy ride to the SEC title game. Here's my question for you. Georgia goes to the Georgia Dome tomorrow and plays Alabama with Milroe in there. Who's winning?
I would say Georgia.
The fact that you're thinking that long about it, though, after what we've been saying about Alabama, tells me a lot.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I think, honestly, if Bama's going to get it rolling with Milroe and those two have to play, and the way Georgia's playing, I'm really not sure. I don't know.
Yeah,
one of these teams, Alabama's starting to find it with Milroe. Georgia's it's really inconsistent offensively right now.
It is.
Beck is doing what he needs to do. but he's only got 3 big-time throws in 5 games, and he just gets rid of the ball and throws the ball right at the sticks.
Yeah.
Something other than Bowers, someone other than Bowers has to become dynamic. Because Bowers, we've seen this even before in games. We were screaming for him to get the ball more. Now he did, and he carried him to an Auburn win. Cool. But if Auburn has any quarterback at all, they're probably winning that game. So I'm starting to worry about the cracks in Georgia on offense and in the pass rush.
Yeah. No, I think that's completely fair, man. And the offense, we'll get into Georgia in a little bit, but that offensive firepower, how that's lacking right now, is a little surprising to me, man, because I really thought this was one of the best receiving corps in the country. You know, besides Bowers, they got Ladd McConkey, who's a really good receiver. Dominic Lovett was fantastic last year at Missouri. I mean, I think he led the Power 5 or was second in the Power 5, I think, in yards per route run last year. Marcus Roseby-Jackson's pretty good. Ra Thomas was Mississippi State's leading receiver. He's one of Georgia's backup receivers right now. Like, they have a talent. It's just it's not getting done. It's not Beck's problem either. Like, I think Beck's played pretty what he needs to do, like you said. But yeah, I have Georgia. We'll get into Georgia a little bit, but I have Georgia higher than 4. I have Ohio State at 4 right now. They had a bye week this week after that thrilling win over Notre Dame, and now you got another tough battle this week, man, with Maryland. I have Maryland. I said it before. I have them as a top 20 team in the country right now. They're not ranked currently, but this is a test, man, because Taulia Tagovailoa was fantastic, but that Ohio State defense is also fantastic. We mentioned before how Georgia's pass rush and overall front 7 is maybe the weak point of that defense. That is the strength of this Ohio State team right now. That receiving corps is obviously fantastic, but the strength of this Ohio State team is that front 7 is probably the best in the country right now. Between all the guys you got on the defensive line, Michael Hall Jr., JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, who's played really well, Tyleik Williams, who's also played pretty well, and then obviously Tommy Eichenberg at linebacker, who I think is definitely one of the best linebackers in the country. He was an All-American for us last year at PFF. That front 7 is lethal, man. So Taulia's got a big test this week, but I'm not fully sold on Kyle McCord yet. That's why they're not a little bit higher, even after beating Notre Dame. But he still has the best set of weapons in the country at his disposal with Marvin Harrison Jr., with Emeka Egbuka. Cade Stover has played fantastic this season at tight end. And then those running backs, too, got Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams, man. That's a really good run game as well, even though Mayan Williams has really not received that much workload this year. But, yeah, man, I still like Ohio State, but the offensive line concerns me. I'm not sold on McCord yet. I have them at 4 now. I have them at 4. They might jump up a little bit higher after the Maryland game. We'll see, because I do like Maryland a lot, but we'll see, man. I have Ohio State at number 4. But who's your number 3 team, Dalton?
It's actually the Buckeyes. We're going to segue right into the same thing. Look, they have a lot. I'm going to be honest with you. I kind of like. I know it's kind of a controversial thing. I kind of like how Ryan Day stuck up for his team after the game. I know some things were said, but I'm going to be honest with you. You mentioned their front 7 might be the best in the country. It's the second highest graded defensive line in the country. All right. Denzel Burke is a terrific corner.
Yep.
Eichenberg and Chambers at linebacker. They're loaded defensively. Look, Ohio State, this is not going to be Dwayne Haskins, C.J. Stroud, Justin Fields, high flying. It's not.
No.
Just accept it now that Ohio State actually, for the moment, is kind of like, well, it's kind of like the new Michigan, where physical, complementary football. You've got the weapons. Don't get me. Harrison and Egbuka are as good as it gets. And Cade Stover, I think, has been terrific. I think he's the eighth best tight end in the country right now, somewhere in the 8th. Yeah, he's the 8th highest graded tight end in the country. Travion Henderson can pop off at any time. They're loaded just about everywhere except at quarterback. But McCord, I kind of like what I'm seeing. It's gutsy. It's working through. They're still 4-0, 5-0, 4-0, I think it is.
Yeah.
They're still winning games. He's playing complementary football. He made throws against Notre Dame when he needed. I think it's another one. You play a top 10 team on the road, just like Florida State and Clemson. Clemson's not top 10, but it's a hard place. Get out of there with a win. Don't care how. Can be coaching, can be McCord, could be anything. They did get outplayed for a lot of the game, but you came out with a win. And now you go into a bye week, and Maryland's going to be tough. You know, he's throwing the ball like crazy right now. He looks really, really good. But Ohio State, same thing as Penn State. Ohio State's that step up now. Taulia's got to prove he can beat that team. And if I remember right, I think Maryland played them tough last year.
He did.
But McCord, I like it a lot going forward for McCord's confidence, okay, to win a game like that, your first big game. He didn't play anybody the weeks before that, even his first start against Indiana. It's a conference game, it's Indiana. It's just not. The juices are flowing. The first game, he clearly threw a couple balls into traffic because he was nervous. But I think what it's going to do for his poise, and I think the confidence that, I think Ryan Day, and to be honest with you, if they win the Big Ten or they go a long way or even a New Year's Six, I have to consider this Ryan Day's best coaching job. What he's doing with this defense, and I know the weapons are there, and what he has to scale it back with this quarterback. No question. I mean, he does. But there's nothing that tells me, I don't think from what I saw in the Notre Dame game that McCord is going to blow their season. I just don't think. I think he can play clean football. There will come a time, maybe when they play Penn State, certainly when they play Michigan, that he's going to have to be a dude, like a real dude for maybe even a quarter, maybe not a whole game, but I'm going to need you to be one of those guys for a little bit. He's not going to do it every week, but I think Ohio State, you have the win at Notre Dame. You have easily a top 5 defense. You could argue at number 1. Weapons everywhere. Travion Henderson and the run game works. I think I've got Ohio State 3, and the quarterback is the only reason, honestly, I don't have them higher, because it's just McCord is getting by. But I think for them in his first year and all that stuff, getting by so far has worked. So I'm going to let it ride at number 3. I know everybody from Georgia is going to kill that because Georgia, they're going to say, well, what's the difference between Ohio State and Georgia? Georgia didn't win at Notre Dame. That's really kind of the tiebreaker for me. They're very similar teams, to be honest with you. Really, I think Ohio State's better at receiver, and Georgia, by the grading at least, is a little bit better at quarterback. But Ohio State has the signature win, or at least one of them.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And I think McCord scares me. Not scares me, but I think McCord is a clear, not weakness. I keep going back on myself, but I think McCord is okay. I think he's fine. I think he'll get the job done. He's kind of like a Carson Beck a little bit, where he's not going to elevate you too much, but he's also not going to be terrible either. I think Beck's a little bit better than him, but yeah, man, they don't have the high-flying offense this year. It's a defensive team. But my number 3 team right now is the Texas Longhorns, who, resume-wise, if you're just looking at resume, this is the number 1 team in the country, because they beat Alabama at Alabama when Alabama was the number 3 team in the country. They beat number 24 Kansas most recently at Texas. Now, of course, Jalen Daniels was not playing. That was a late scratch that we unfortunately did not know. We would have, of course, changed our previews a lot. Dalton probably would have picked Texas in that game if he knew Jalen.
If only we were mind readers, of course. If only we were psychics.
Yeah, right immediately when they're like, "Oh, Jalen Daniels is not warming up," I hit up you and I was like, "Dude, I feel so bad for you that you picked Kansas in this upset, because this came out of nowhere." He had back tightness or something like that. He had back issues last year too. He wasn't able to go. Hopefully he gets better soon, man. But yeah, they beat Kansas at least, though. Kansas is number 24 in the country. I'm pretty sure no other team is. I'm almost 99% sure no other team has 2 top 25 wins so far this season. So Texas is one of them, though, and they got a chance for a third this weekend, man. With number 12 Oklahoma, I have them number 10. But yeah, man, this Texas team, and if they beat Oklahoma, and if they beat them badly, and they win convincingly, I might have to put them at number 1 just out of pure respect, because this is what they've done. Alabama, they won pretty convincingly. They won by 10 points in that game. They beat Kansas pretty convincingly, obviously without Jalen Daniels. But if they beat Oklahoma, who I'm very high on, pretty convincingly again, it's going to be tough for me to not have Texas number 1, man, because I do think what they've done so far this season it's the best resume in college football. I think they have the best resume in college football. I do have some question marks around mostly Quinn Ewers, who has been a little bit up and down this year. He was great in the Alabama game, but he's been inconsistent in the other games. Some questions about him, but that defense is playing really well. The receiving core is still fantastic. The offensive line is playing pretty well. And Jonathan Brooks has really emerged, man, as a star running back for them after losing Bijan Robinson and Rashawn Johnson. They got another great running back right now in Jonathan Brooks, man. So everywhere on this team I'm pretty sold on, except, I'm not all the way there on Quinn Ewers yet as a guy who can win a national championship, but he has the talent to. I'm just not all the way sold on the Longhorns winning it all with Quinn Ewers at quarterback. But we'll see. We'll see what they got this weekend against Oklahoma.
Yeah, and we'll just roll right into it. I have Texas at 2. The resume speaks, man. You win at Tuscaloosa by 10, big time. And look, Kansas is a good team. They're a darn good team, and it's terrible that Jalen Daniels couldn't play in that game, because honestly, that would have been I believe that would have been a tight game with Jalen Daniels in there. But for Texas, again, a take care of business thing. You still have a team that's number 24. Bean has played a lot. He's played a lot. He is not the worst backup quarterback you could have.
Very good backup quarterback, I'd say. He was great at North Texas when he played there. Yeah, he graded out really well there. So, yeah, I'd agree. He's a great backup quarterback.
Right. So, and for them to go in and really, halftime it was close, but for the game to end 40-14 over a ranked team who still caused them some problems in the run game, especially, big time win still. I think, so the national championship question with Ewers and all of that, it's going to get answered as we go. Okay. Now it's Red River week, right? This is as usual the biggest game in the Big 12. It's going to be the biggest game in the Big 12. The winner of this game has every opportunity to run the table and be the number one team in the country.
Yeah,
really. Ewers, it's frustrating sometimes because he's got Brooks behind him now, 218 yards against Kansas. If they get balance, that's going to help them big time, because defensively they're playing great. They're forcing turnovers. They've got nasty guys up front. Savondre Sweat's the highest graded defensive tackle in the country right now. Byron Murphy's not far behind him. They're allowing less than 13 points a game. Their defense is holding up their end, man. They go into Tuscaloosa, they hold that team to 24. You hold a dangerous Kansas offense, even without Daniels, to 14. We posed the question last week. Maybe they're a defensive team that just needs the offense to just get it done, right? And if they have balance with Brooks, that's fantastic. Ewers is frustrating sometimes, man, because you have Worthy and Whittington and Mitchell, and you have all these weapons. You got everything you could want. And there are for some reason, I don't know if it's the build or the throwing motion, for some reason, when he's throwing the ball properly, like to the right spots and just zinging it with conviction. We've seen it twice now against Alabama, which is odd, where when he's on, he looks like Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know if I think they have similar throwing motion. There's something that's throwing me in that direction, but it's just, I need it consistently. It's the one thing where I go this week, do you have another like 90 passing grade in you? Do you have this in you in the biggest game of the year? Because, the problem is, like, the last couple years, the Alabama game was kind of thought to be the biggest game of the year, and he played incredibly well. But this game is going to decide the conference. This actually, more than the Bama game, has the most ramifications towards the playoffs. So it's about consistency on offense. They need to run the ball better, and they did starting last week. 218 from Brooks is obviously fantastic on only 21 carries. So they have everything. They have 2 signature wins. And they just need, again, keep getting better as the season goes on. This is going to be, it's Oklahoma week. It's going to be nuts. It's going to be tight. It's going to take everything you have to win this game. But if you get through this one and you keep playing consistent football, there's no reason they couldn't run the table. So I've got them at 2 on the 2 big wins, and just that's really, like you said, the resume speaks for itself. They just need, I would need a little more consistency, especially offensively, to put them at the top spot.
Yeah, I think if you're ranking purely off of who deserves to be number one, I think they are number one. So I have no issue with people who want to put them number one. I'm just a little bit not all the way there. And you mentioned Quinn Ewers, man. He's got the talent. This is not like it's a talent issue with him. You look at the highest rated quarterback recruits since 2010, according to On3's industry ranking. Number 1, Trevor Lawrence. Number 2, Justin Fields. Number 3, ironically, is Arch Manning, who is Quinn Ewers' backup right now, and probably a guy that we'll be talking about pretty soon, next year at least. 4 is Bryce Young. 5 is Quinn Ewers. So you got 3 guys who were first-round picks, 3 guys who are currently starting NFL quarterbacks in the top 5 quarterback recruits since 2010 in terms of how highly they were rated coming out of high school. And the other 2 are in Texas's quarterback room right now. So they got some talent in the quarterback room. It's just you got to put it together now. So It's weird, man. It's weird that we're talking about Texas and Ohio State as defensive teams when before the season, all anyone could talk about was the weapons that both these teams had. So they have the opportunity to both become the most well-rounded teams in the country. It's just about whether or not their quarterbacks, Kyle McCord and Quinn Ewers, can step up and deliver those insane weapons the ball consistently. And hopefully Jatavion Sanders, who suffered an injury, one of the best tight ends in the country, he's able to go pretty soon too, because he is another massive weapon for them. But so you have them at number 2, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I have number 2. I have Michigan at number 2, who has looked phenomenal. This is the Michigan team that we thought we've had the last couple of years, where they won the last 2 Big Ten championships, made the last 2 college football playoffs. They've looked great, man. They just beat Nebraska 45-7. Every single game this season, Michigan has won by at least 24 points. However, the one thing I will say, and we'll get into their schedule right now, so they played 5 games so far this season. Their first 9 games on their schedule, none of those 9 teams are in the top 30 of PFF's power rankings. And 8 of those 9 teams are not in the top 50 of PFF's power rankings. And so far, the best team that Michigan's played so far this season has been Rutgers, who is 55th in our power rankings. Everyone else is outside the top 80 of our power rankings. So I struggle. I know you're going to have Michigan at number 1, and I think that's fair, because I think you can make a strong argument they are the best team in the country. I just struggle knocking off the team that I have at number 1, just because I don't think anyone's truly earned it yet. Now, Texas could after this week against Oklahoma, but I don't think Michigan, with what they've done in the 5 games they played, they blew everyone out. They look fantastic, don't get me wrong, but I just think those 5 games, man, are way too easy. And the team at number 1, I mean, it's not a surprise, but I have Georgia still at number 1. Georgia's beaten at least two of the teams that Georgia's beaten in South Carolina and Auburn are better than any team that Michigan's beaten so far this season. So I struggle putting Michigan above them for now, only because we haven't seen Michigan do it against a quality opponent yet. And we won't see Michigan do it against a quality opponent until they play Penn State in mid-November. Their last 3 games of the season are against Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State. That's a brutal 3-week stretch for the Wolverines. But like I said, the first 9 games are really easy. So I have them at number 2. They look fantastic. I picked Michigan to win it all before the season, and I still would believe that. But I'm just not going to put them at number 1 just yet, just because they haven't done it against a quality opponent so far this season. So I have them at number 2.
Yeah, I got them in the top spot, and I think it's the easy schedule is what it is. But Georgia, look, South Carolina and Auburn aren't great teams. They're better than Rutgers, but they're not great teams, and they've really. It was a struggle for Georgia. Yeah. I'm not sure that Michigan would struggle with those 2 teams. Michigan, J.J. McCarthy's the 7th highest graded quarterback in the country. They have 2 of the top 10 defensive tackles. They have 2 of the top 13 defensive ends, leading to, of course, the highest graded D-line in the country. Roman Wilson has been ridiculous. He's the 6th highest graded receiver in the country, a 99.9 deep grade. The vertical element that's been added with him, and I believe was really unlocked in the semifinal last year against TCU. It's unlocked McCarthy. It's unlocked their offense. Roman Wilson really has now become the key to what makes their offense 2-dimensional. Okay, Corum and Edwards are obviously great. I mean, they're going to run the ball. They're going to stop the run. They're going to whoop you in the trenches, right? That's what Michigan does. But it's part of it's an eye test for me. And look, to me, who's number 1, especially this early in the year, shouldn't be that big controversial thing, right?
Yeah.
Being in the top 4 is what matters. Honestly, it doesn't. The games are played on a neutral field. It doesn't matter really who's number 4 and who's number 1. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I get the Georgia thing. I get it. They've won the last 2 and they haven't lost. How could you drop them? I get it. It's an eye test thing. So when it's kind of one of the themes today has been when you play teams that you're better than, go stomp on them.
Yeah,
just do it. They've won every game by at least 24. You said,
yeah.
Go stomp on them. Right. And I know with Rutgers, it was probably about the first 25 minutes or so where Rutgers put up a fight, but. Look, the defense is spectacular. They're number 2 in grading overall behind Miami, actually, that'll be a future conversation because they're rolling. But, McCarthy's a top 10 quarterback. You've got an easy top 5 defense. You've got one of the best vertical receivers in the country. I think you've got the best pair of running backs in the country. Michigan's got everything. And if McCarthy is unlocked, if Roman Wilson has unlocked McCarthy and he's willing to throw the deep ball now and they're a little more vertical than they used to be, because nobody questioned anything at Michigan the last 5-6 years other than, can they really throw it when they need to? And it sure looks like they can. McCarthy was spectacular in the semifinal game, and he's been terrific in these first 5 weeks. I mean, he's probably not going to put up the raw numbers to win a Heisman, but he's playing on a similar level to all those guys. And that's always been the question at Michigan is, can the passing game do what the rest of the team? They have O-line and D-line and backs and linebackers and everything. They've always had everything else. And if McCarthy's going to play at this level, they're probably the most well-rounded team in the country. They have a distinct advantage at quarterback over Ohio State.
Yep.
They are more consistent offensively than Texas. They're more consistent offensively than Georgia. They are bigger and tougher than Florida State. You run down, they have certainly a better defense than a team like USC. You run down the list of what does Michigan not have? I mean, their coverage is probably more, it's closer to B plus or A minus than like super, super crazy, but they also have the best D line by the grading right now in the country.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard. And honestly, the combination of all those things, if McCarthy continues to play at this level, and I know those last 3 games are tough, but we know who Michigan is. Would you not still favor Michigan in all 3 of those games?
Yeah. No, they definitely would be, man. And it sounds weird that I'm disagreeing with you because I still think this team is winning the national championship. Like I had them in the preseason. I just struggle saying they've earned it yet. I think, again, it's difficult to talk about, but yeah. And you mentioned the coverage unit. I mean, they still have a fantastic secondary, man. I think
the question for me, working from the top down, is, I mean, straight up at number one, I just asked myself, not 2022 and 21 and anything.
Yeah, that's fair.
These 6 weeks that we've seen, and it's, to me, I did a little research and looking at some things and all. Who's the best team in the country?
Yeah.
Now Texas with the resume, cool, but they were also struggling with Wyoming and have had some other inconsistencies, offensive. Michigan, to me, just 2023 alone. I'm not taking away 2 trophies or anything. All right. They look right now like the best team.
Yeah, I'd agree.
It's an eye test thing. It is, because they're whacking everybody on that schedule, and they will continue to do so until they're 9-0. That's how it's going to be. It is, and if their D line is going to be that good, Penn State's going to have a real issue when they get there. It's just going to be a problem if they go into Michigan or wherever the game is, and Michigan still is the highest graded D line in the country. Wow, how are your Nittany Lions going to block them? So it's a problem. I mean, really, it is. And when you just think about all the Michigan is the one team to me right now with an answer for everything.
I agree. I definitely agree. And I agree with you. They are the best team in the country. I think they still will win the national championship. I struggle dropping a still unbeaten Georgia team who's won the last 2, who's had issues before in those last 2 years. Don't get me wrong. I do agree they're not the best team in the country right now, but I struggle not ranking them number 1 after still being undefeated because Michigan just hasn't played anyone yet. So that's why I'm still a little bit like, okay, I don't know. I'm going to keep them there for now. I have Georgia at number 1, man. You mentioned it. They have some serious issues. I still think they have talent on every side of the ball and every position group. It's just about it putting together, man. I mentioned before, the receiving core should be a lot better than what it is right now outside of Brock Bowers. Defensive line should be better than it is right now as well. I think they can put it together. I'm more worried about Georgia than I have been in the last couple of years. So I have Georgia at number 1 right now. And really, it's mainly because of one man, and it is number 19 on the Bulldogs in Brock Bowers, who has been fantastic, man. He won that game single-handedly against Auburn. He had a 94.1 grade against Auburn, 157 yards, over 4 yards per route run. He had 6 catches for 148 yards and a touchdown in the second half alone in that game. Brock Bowers, a take I wanted to bring to the table here, Dalton. You could tell me if I'm being hyperbolic or whatever. I truly think Brock Bowers, once the season's over and once he's moving on to Sundays, we're going to look back and say, this is the greatest tight end college football has ever seen. Am I being hyperbolic when I say that?
I don't think totally, and I'm certainly not old enough to go digging way back deep into some other guys, some of the other older guys that might be in that conversation. But certainly in the last decade, I know Kyle Pitts had one or two crazy years, and Gronk was taken in the second round and had a great run at Arizona, and certain Bowers, since the moment he stepped on the field, it's ridiculous. I mean, he was honestly. Was that his freshman year 2 years ago when Georgia beat Alabama? Is that right? He was the best player on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, as a freshman, and tight ends, you don't see this out of tight ends.
No,
they're really generally tight ends they're not physically built enough to do that early. And then the way he can run, I mean, Kittle's the only other one I've seen it with George Kittle with the Niners. Not even now anymore when he was really in his prime. I mean, you're giving this guy jet sweeps.
Yeah.
I mean, you're handing this guy the football and telling him to outrun people, and he outflanks them. I mean, he's gonna go to the combine and probably run a mid, probably somewhere in the 4.4s at his size and his strength, and he's also an excellent blocker. You very rarely. Kyle Pitts is the last one we saw take over games, and he did it for probably a year and a half. I know the 1 year it was nuts, but. Brock Bowers, this is his third year doing this. I mean, this is kind of the point and counterpoint with Georgia is, well, Brock Bowers, is he the best? I know where you're at with this. You're going to call him the best non-quarterback in the country, or maybe the best. You might call him the best player in the country. I wouldn't. Caleb Williams is a freak of nature, but
yeah,
he's probably the best non-quarterback in the country.
I would argue. If you're looking at who stands above their position more than anyone, I would say it's Brock Bowers. I think that him and the gap between him and the next tight end is ridiculous. The gap between Caleb and Penix is smaller than the gap between him and the tight end. But I agree with you. I mean, you can make an argument for either of those two. I have no problem with it. But listen, man, Brock Bowers, dude. It might sound hyperbolic calling this guy a true junior, who's not like he's a senior or a redshirt senior, a junior, the best tight end college football's ever seen, but he has been this since a true freshman, man. He was an All-American for AP and us as a true freshman, All-American for AP and us as a true sophomore, won the John Mackey Award last season, which is given to the best tight end in the country. If he wins it again this year, he'll become the first ever two-time winner of the John Mackey Award in his 24-year history. And here's some stats that Brock Bowers has already accomplished. Not even done with his junior. He's not even midway through his junior season right now. He already, among all Power 5 tight ends since we started in 2014 PFF College, among all tight ends in the Power 5 since 2014, he leads them all in receiving grade. He leads them all in receiving yards. He leads them all in receiving touchdowns, or tied for the most receiving touchdowns right now. Probably will lead them all after this week. He leads them all in receiving yards after contact, and he leads them all in forced missed tackles on catches as well. He has been the best tight end in the country since the day he graduated high school. He has been the best tight end in college football since after his high school graduation. He is, in my opinion, the greatest tight end college football has ever seen. Now, it might sound weird talking about that while he's still playing college football, but I truly think once the season's over, we're going to look back and say, no tight end has ever been that dominant, who's been the best tight end in the country every single season of his career, from true freshman to now, like Brock Bowers, man. So I think he's the most dominant player in the country. I think he's the best tight end in the country once again this year. The one thing I loved after the Auburn game, one Auburn fan on X tweeted out, after someone posted Brock Bowers' stats, and an Auburn fan tweeted out, yet we didn't double/bracket this guy, clown emoji. Ron Roberts, the Auburn's defensive coordinator, saw that tweet and quote tweeted it. And then, of course, he deleted it later on, I'm sure, after Auburn got to him and said, hey, can you please delete this? But he said, responding to that fan, I don't know what game you were watching. He was bracketed most of the day. They were trying to take him away. They were setting two guys to him the whole time, and Brock Bowers still put up 150 yards in the second half against Auburn, even with Auburn really just focusing on him, man. So he might go to New York, man. This might be a guy that goes to New York in the Heisman ceremony, which is insane considering all the quarterbacks that we have this year with Penix and Caleb Williams and Bo Nix and Jordan Travis and Shedeur Sanders, all of them. Brock Bowers might get an invite to New York as a tight end, which is unheard of, man. So, again, it might sound hyperbolic. I just think right now what he's done in 3 years, he is the greatest tight end in college football history. And I did some research before making that take. I looked back at a lot of other tight ends. they don't stack. He was already maybe the number 2 or number 3 tight end of all time entering this season. Now I think he's number 1, man. I think this guy is the number 1 tight end in the country. So if he's a 3-time All-American, if he's a 2-time Mackey Award winner, it's going to be hard to deny, man, that this guy is truly special.
Yeah, the body of work is insane, and honestly, he's the sole reason they beat Auburn. Would they have beaten Auburn without him? I really don't think so.
No,
you just see. I mean, this is why this might, it's gonna sound cheesy, but it's really why I would like to see them play Alabama in the SEC title game. I would like to see Saban in that secondary and what the plan is, because obviously you play Georgia, and it used to be when you play Georgia before this guy. All right, how do we stop the run? How do we slow down the run? How do we compete up front? Now, where in the world is 19? Where is he? Because it's slot, it's wide, it's motion, it's tight, it's 12 personnel, it's across the field, it's up the field. He can really run, he can get up the seam. It's jet sweep. Really, it's like it reminds you of another 19. They use Brock Bowers as a tight end like the Niners use Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, they do.
Which is crazy to me. I mean, that's how good this guy is.
Yeah,
it's not just certain guys. Like, we've seen tight ends who live in the slot, like Kyle Pitts was a little like that. I remember. There was another tight end for the Lions, not Hawkinson, the one before that. I can't remember the name.
Kelsey does it a little bit too.
Yeah, like we see guys even in the NFL who, even in college, lived in the slot.
Yeah.
Oh, who was it? It was that tight end from North Carolina. There was one from North Carolina who didn't do much in the league.
Oh my God! Okay. I'm Eric Ebron, right? Top 10.
That's it. Ebron. Thank you. Eric Ebron lived in the slot for the Tar Heels. Lived out there. He lined up as an actual tight end like 20% of the time. This is still Georgia's offense. They are in line, 2 tight ends often, I formation still under center often. Slot, even getting in the gun, he's off the ball kind of H-back thing, can do all those things. This guy, I don't know that we've seen a tight end so early, so young, even back to his freshman year, who can do everything. He really is their offense. Otherwise, they're just moving the chains and waiting for him to make an explosive. Or if they're trying to kill the clock, they're running. But even if they're running the ball, find him, because he's probably mauling somebody up front. He's certainly in the last decade since PFF's been doing this. It's hard to make the argument that he's not. If we're talking all time, I know college football has been played forever, but if you're talking all time, he has to be in the argument. And really, if Georgia wins a national title, he's probably going to be the very first reason they do so. I mean, their defense, Kirby and the defense is always a thing, but Brock Bowers is that guy. And I think the only thing I worry about with that is I go, if he's another one, so dependent on him. If anything at all happens to him, where do they go? Where do the explosive plays come from? But for right now, as long as he's on the field, I mean, he's the best. He's the best player on any field he steps on, no question.
He absolutely is, man. So yeah, I did some research. I'm not just putting out a take that that is a high praise for a guy. So I'm not just saying that without any research. I did a little bit of research, but I think he's up there, man. I think he's definitely, I think after the season we will say that, but I would argue he is now, man. I think Keith Jackson, the old tight end for Oklahoma was up there. Brock Bowers is certainly up there. There's other Ken McAfee from Notre Dame was great too, but he was a 3-time All-American. But Bowers can be a 3-time All-American. Bowers can win the Mackey Award twice. Nobody's ever won the Mackey Award twice, and he'd be one of the only tight ends ever. Nobody's ever been a 4-time All-American at the tight end position. If he's a 3-time All-American, he'd tie the most ever. So I think I would
be curious actually where that receiving grade stacks up with receivers as well. Because I believe it's not. I'm seeing 94.3. I would probably later I'll look this up, but where that receiving grade stacks up in the last 10 years with any wide receiver also, because I would bet there isn't more than maybe 10 guys who have that for a career. And I know some group of 5 conference receivers dominate down there and do some things, but it's certainly first among tight ends, but I'm curious just for the fun of it to see where that stacks up with wide receivers.
Dude, it's got to be up there, man. And I think he is, again, it's just like, it's not, a lot of those stats were not only grade stats, they were counting stats. And he's already first in almost all of them. He's a true junior. Like a lot of these tight ends that we have dated for, we have 5 years for them. He's already passed them in 2.5 years of playing college football. So he is, in my opinion, he is clearly the number one tight end in college football this year, number one tight end last year, and the number one tight end the year before that. And again, I know Mark Chichester, our editor-in-chief, didn't want me to put it out there that he is the greatest of all time just yet, but I'm willing to put it out for you guys here on Preferred Walk-On that I do think he is the greatest tight end in college football history. But Dalton, any parting thoughts you have? Because I'm currently in Ultimate right now trying to pull the highest graded receivers of all time. So do you have any parting thoughts on everything we talked about today?
No, I think, you know what, there's a long, you get these rankings. These teams have only played 4 or 5 games. You got a long way to go, and we got some darn good games coming even this week. Ohio State, Maryland, LSU, Missouri. We started the show talking about Missouri. You've got obviously the Red River rivalry, a long way to go before any of this is settled. Look, we can put out our top 10, the AP can do theirs, or whoever, the coaches. It's going to look a lot different even 2-3 weeks from now. So, I mean, you've got just a ton of huge games left to be played. And I think the madness is coming, Max. It's coming. We almost had it on Saturday. We were so close in several games. You just get the feeling it's going to bubble over at some point. It's going to get crazy. It's just a matter of what week, and then you're still going to see some epic games. Look, I keep saying, teams with playoff hopes. Look, 4 teams are not going undefeated.
No,
just not. Usually every year you get 1, maybe. I think we've had a couple of years maybe with 2. You're not getting 4 teams to run the table. You're not. So 1 loss is not the end of the world. Even look at, honestly, Alabama, I think, still has every right to feel like they can make the playoff. With a loss. Notre Dame, honestly, if Notre Dame ran the table with a USC win mixed in there and an at Clemson mixed in there, they could absolutely still run the table. They run the table, they make the playoffs. So there's nobody. I mean, there's no short of probably, you could probably argue 13 or 14 teams that you go, unlikely maybe. Even a team, honestly, like, let's say Washington State pulls some miracle and only maybe loses 1 game or runs the table. I go, what? I mean, so many teams are still alive, and it's so early. We learn as much as we can each week. But Oklahoma, you mentioned, I'm glad you brought up Oklahoma. Of the magnitude of that game, Oklahoma gets by Texas, they can very easily run the table and just go and finish. Really, they run the table. They could finish number 1 at the end of the day. But it's going to get wild. We are so close to college football just turning upside down and things happening that we don't think are going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I unfortunately, Ultimate is crashing because there is about 900,000 snaps it has to sift through in order to get me the highest graded receivers of all time. So hopefully we'll get that stat to you hopefully pretty soon. But yeah, man, it should be an awesome week of college football. I mean, you got 4 ranked games coming up. Speaking of, you mentioned Washington State. I want to shout out real quick. We have an interview with Cameron Ward posting pretty soon. Tuesday night, whenever you're watching this, it is getting posted. He was a fantastic kid. One of the top Heisman candidates, I think, so far this season. He was awesome. So we have an interview with him coming out really shortly. But yeah, man, it should be an awesome week of college football. It was an awesome week of college football. Another 4 ranked games we got this week. Another 3 or 4 awesome non-ranked games that we have. Maryland, Ohio State's one of them. A&M, Alabama's one of them as well. So we have some decisions to make, man, over what games we're talking about in our preview episode. But yeah, that's what we got for our review for our top 10 teams in college football. We appreciate you guys. We know this is a little bit of a longer one, but for producer Eli back there and for Dalton Wasserman, I'm Max Chadwick, and we'll talk to you guys next time.